welcome, one and all. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. All right, we're good so far, right? Success.
Nailed it.
Can anybody tell me what happened 616 days ago? That's right. Last time we were here doing a live event. Can you believe that, Sam? 20 months. Wow. Thank you for coming out. This is our 21st Female Founders event. 19 here and on Zoom, and then 2 business pitch plan competitions that we've done at Middlebury College over the years. Yeah, really cool. Middlebury's in the house, right? There's been over 2,000 folks. 2,000, that's too many. 2,000 have come out over the years. Wow. To attend, to meet, to mingle, to help, to learn, and share. So thank you for making the effort. Change happens by those who show up. I want to thank our partners here at Hotel Vermont. Hans, Maddie, somewhere in the house. Thank you for making this place available to us year in and year out. The Media Factory. I'm going to make the final cut now. Thank you for coming out and doing this. It was really critical for us years ago to put this onto public access channels all around Vermont and our region. And in fact, it gets distributed out to 7 states, which is incredible, from Ohio to Florida. So thank you for being our long-term partner here. And also, I'd be remiss on a day like today not thanking our core partner at VSET and a champion for women in business and economic development, Senator Patrick Leahy, who just announced his retirement at the end of this session. So thank you. 24 years he has sponsored and helped put on the Women's Economic Opportunity Conference, which was just held this past October. So really special. My name's Dave Bradbury, and I work at VSET and the Vermont Seed Capital Fund, along with Sam, and then somewhere Nikki and Kelly in the back. Hey there, team. And then we have 2 alumna of our team here, Phoebe Lowe and Lawrence Anderson, somewhere down there smiling with their masks on, who really helped get us going during the first few years. So this is the start of season 6, and really welcome. VSET, we work with companies trying to come up with actionable advantages for them as they start, scale, and hopefully thrive here in Vermont. The people they need to meet, the places they need to go, the resources they need to find, and the capital they need, or the protein, to fuel their business forward. We worked with almost 400 companies last year alone, up 45% year over year. So you are starting stuff time and time again, taking risks, finding partners, doing it right here in Vermont. So thank you for those efforts. So much is happening around our state since we started this in 2016. I was trying to think of a list of companies on the way up, and I have a few. Women founded, women co-founded, women run. Sarah Khalil at CoreMap. Chrissy Henrik with Whiteout Solutions up in St. Jay. Jasmine Farrell with a crypto company in Morrisville called Zestbloom. Angie Murray, co-founded with her husband Matt, Wide Wheel. Dana Steinhoff, Rad Magpie. Diane Abruzzini with Rigorous Tech, right? There's a robot company in Fletcher, right? That's awesome. And then on and on. Really, the problem when you make a list, you leave so many people off. And I just wanted to say that's all I could think of coming up the highway tonight. So let's get to it, Sam. Sam Roach-Gerber, my partner here at VSET, along with Kelly and Nikki. And let's introduce these wonderful women entrepreneurs, women CEOs, and hear their stories. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, Dave. As Dave mentioned, last season was virtual, so I'm a little rusty up here. I already tripped on the rug twice, so I'm going to have you guys bear with me this evening. I almost said this morning, so we're off to a good start. Before we get started, I want to welcome my dear friend Meg Smith up. Meg is the director of the Vermont Women's Fund. She is a total badass, and she has launched a very, very exciting what do we call it? Movement?
A movement
initiative, social movement that all of you need to know about. And I'll give her a minute here, and then I'm going to kick her off.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, David, and great all you panelists. Hey, everybody. I'm Meg Smith. I'm sorry I'm talking through a mask. Hi, Meg. But I want to tell you about the initiative that the Women's Fund is launched. It started really back in a few years ago when we found out that there is no data that exists that tracks women-owned businesses in the state. Nobody knows how many there are. And we discovered this through our initiative Change the Story that was doing a series of research reports. And when they found out, they wanted to find out the impact of women's business ownership on Vermont's economy, and couldn't find any data. They scraped census data in order to determine a number of things, and I'm going to try and be very brief here, but over 23,000 female founders, generating $2.2 billion in revenues. But when you amassed all the income plus scaling up, et cetera, women-owned businesses make 19 cents to the dollar of a male-owned business. So that's a WTF moment. And so we decided after a number of years to launch this initiative. We've talked to the state, we've talked to everybody, they're all on board. We have a lot of wonderful stakeholders, technical assistance folks, VSET, but it's called This Way Up. There's power in our numbers. There are cards at the table over yonder, and any woman who has a business, whether it's full-fledged 40 hours a week or a side gig or you're a consultant, if you are running a business of any kind, we'd love to have you go to the website, take a brief survey, and you will see in real time. It was developed by Marguerite Dibble of Game Theory. It's super cool looking and engaging, but you can go to the map and findings and see, well, you'll get a number. We're up to 388. I'd like to get to 10,000 in the next 6 months, so that's ambitious. I need everybody. And you can see your impact on Vermont's economy, where you are on the map. It's very exciting, but it will not work and it won't fly unless everybody signs up. So sign up, be counted. We want to hear your voice. There's a million things that we can do once we have this statistical data to show our collective economic impact. Thanks very much. See you. Thank you for the airtime.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Meg. Awesome. Thank you, Meg. And that big data is so important. I went looking for it, I think, last year, and I emailed Meg with 7 other women leaders in the state, and I said, where is this data? And the answer was they don't have it. Right, Lori? Lori knows. So it's really, really important. So please do that. And there are those cards in the back of the room if you want to grab one on your way out. Just a quick safety reminder, please keep your masks on if you're not eating or drinking. And keep your distance from people if at all possible. We're all vaccinated here. So I appreciate everyone's flexibility and understanding as we sort of figure out what normal is now. And I love just the level of social awkwardness that we all have now. Just amazing. We're all on the same level. It's great. I love it. So I'm really excited. We have, like Dave said, we had 20 female founders events roughly. And one of our very first ones was tech, obviously. That's our jam. But we have done many other topics. And when Dave and I sat down and said, what are we going to do to kick off this season? We're like, it's time. We got to go back to tech. And I remember in 2016 when I was, choosing speakers, it was kind of hard. Honestly, I was like, where are the tech female founders? This time I had a really hard time keeping it to 3. And these are 3 absolute badass rock stars, and I'm so excited that they are all here tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, because I think that's the best way to do it. But we have Narine Hall, we have Dani Giandomenico, and we have my friend Lisa Groeneveld, who is also a VSET board member. Boom. So let's start at the end. Narine, if you just want to start by saying who you are and what your company is. And speakers, you're welcome to take your mask off if you want to.
All right. Okay, can you guys hear me? Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, so I'm Narine Hall. I'm the co-founder and CEO at InSpace, and we're a video conferencing platform built by educators for educators around things that happen in a real classroom.
Amazing. Dani.
Can you hear me? I'm Dani Giandomenico, and I'm CEO of IXIS. We are a data technology company. We integrate data systems model that data for our clients, and then create dashboards and ways to access that data so it's easier for our clients to use it when they need it.
Awesome. Lisa G.
Yes, I'm Lisa Groeneveld, and I'm a co-founder of OnLogic. We design and manufacture industrial computers, so they're computers that go into places and they're very rugged. So we bring the hardware to this panel today, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for coming. It's hard to see whether you're smiling at us or not, so we're going to assume if the light is making your hair glow that you're happy. So that's
Absolutely, love it. Well, one of the things I just like to start with is how you got into tech, right? We're still battling today getting women into tech. So I think that, to me, is just a really important place to start. Lisa, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I kind of tripped and fell into tech. I was working, or no, actually I was studying at Northeastern University. I
Go Huskies,
grew up in
right?
Barry. I don't know, I was too busy studying to go watch any sports. Kind of a loser back then, still sort of a loser. I was doing a co-op at Northeastern, which was a great program if anyone has any young people in their life thinking about programs in college. And a friend of mine who was graduating said, "Do you know what, Lisa, you'd be really awesome at? IT stuff, and so you should go interview for this company called CompuServe." And any of you who are old, of a certain age, yeah, let's see hands. Who's old enough to remember CompuServe? Come on, be my peeps. Yes, thank you. Leave me up here by myself.
Wait, what is that?
I'm not even going to explain that to you. And so I got my first job in IT working for an internet service provider. And so I just sort of tripped right into it. I thought I was going to go into marketing and sell toothpaste. And I ended up selling network services.
The dream that every young girl has.
I always wanted to sell toothpaste.
Amazing. Dani, how about you?
Let's see. I was just out of school at the time, and I was playing around with this cool little technology called Urchin, and no one really knew what it was. And then Google bought it and renamed it Google Analytics, and suddenly everyone knew what it was. And because I was with a company that was there first, Google kind of anointed us and took us under their wing and put us in all these cool companies to ask and figure out what to do with the data to evangelize it. And then the technology piece was just how we had to scale it and automate it. So the two came together, and then lo and behold, add all these other data systems and you can do some really cool stuff. So I guess that's how I got into it.
Awesome. Narine.
Yeah, so for me, it all started really in 4th grade. I learned about computer science and programming. And it's really interesting, like once I wrote my first program and I realized I can make my computer do anything I want. It was just like this clicking moment, and I've been pretty much addicted since then, and I love coding. It's just, it's my passion. And then I learned about data science and a lot further that it can take you. And yeah, I've been obsessed about coding since then. I love being in tech. It's just like energizes me. It's really like an interesting place where you can really build anything you want. So that's really fun.
That's awesome. And so at what point, all of you have sort of described working for other companies, right? So at what point did you take that step to become a founder, and was that sort of like natural, you wanted to do it, or was it sort of oh shit, I think I started a company? Because I've heard both. Dani, you want to kick us off with that?
Thanks. It was the latter.
I had a feeling.
Actually, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was much happier if you could just stick me in a lab doing the work and let someone else run the company. It was really by force that I had to do it, because I tried to stick myself into an enterprise that was already moving in a certain direction. And what I wanted to do with data was a little bit more bold, and I think at the helm they would have had to change course in the different times I tried to join an organization. And it's too hard as an individual employee to get sometimes an organization to change like that. So in order to do what I wanted to do, the way I could realize that vision, I didn't really have a choice.
I love that. And did you, you're a solo founder, right? So was that sort of intentional, or, yeah, I know,
Just
it's
being real.
really hard. Or like, how did you kind of get your initial team started, I guess?
Yeah, it was not intentional. Like I said, I think I had to go by force into that world. I didn't go lightly because I waited a long time. I started IXIS when I was pretty far along in my career. I was 35 when I started it. And then, yeah, I think in hindsight, if I had had a partner, a lot of things would have been easier. I wouldn't have felt so alone, and it's a pretty lonely place to be as to be an entrepreneur to begin with. So having really good partners, I think, would have been, if I could do it over again and found the right people, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, totally. And Narine, do you want to talk about maybe finding the right people? Because you do have co-founders.
Yeah, so for me, it's all about the team and really just having fun. We were kind of having fun, and then we realized we started a company. That was like really interesting. So, last spring when everybody was like, moving to virtual, I was teaching at Champlain College, and I love teaching, and it was like really fun. I just got like Google Faculty Award for like developing machine learning course content, etc. So I'm feeling great about this, right? So then I go to my first like Zoom class, and like, I ask a question, and like all my 25 students try to answer at the same time, like because we had like this vibrant conversations in a real classroom. And we realized this is not happening. It's awkward. And then it was like, by the end of the semester, I was miserable. I was like, this is not fun. I'm not feeling like I'm really making a change here, or like really delivering the same level of interaction and like knowledge as what happens in real classroom. And that's when I was like, I love teaching, but I feel like I should quit because it just doesn't click with me. I'm not enjoying it as much. And, I connected with my longtime friend. We have been, working together since college. We've been coding together, pulling overnighters. And I was like, I feel like there's something better we can do. Like, if only I had the right tools. Like, I feel like I'm constrained in this virtual environment. Everybody's in a square. I can't move them. Like, no one can move. Like, nothing is happening. Like, all those, like, clicking moments are missing. Like, could it be it's the technology? So that's kind of when we're like, all right, what if we forget everything that's out there and just start from scratch? How would you build like video conferencing that's just built for educators, like nothing else matters? So that's kind of when we're like, okay, what if it's a circle and your video is a circle, you can click, you can move it around. So now you have this movement piece, and then people can feel like agency over the experience, they can get close to each other, have conversations, and then when they move away, they can't hear each other anymore. So now they can go have other conversations. And just one by one, they started clicking, and then next thing I know, I think we like pulled 3 overnighters, and then we're like, okay, we need help. So we started reaching out to like, friends from college and other places, and very quickly we had like 7 engineers join us. Like they just got really excited about the idea. We kind of built the MVP and moved in and started living there a little bit. So that was kind of fun. And yeah, it was definitely a team effort. Like to this date, it's all about the team, and it's just like really just showing up every day to have fun with your friends and team, right?
That's awesome. And then Lisa, you are representing, of course, the husband-wife duo business, which I think is like pretty common.
Yes.
So tell us about that. How has that been? The good, the bad, and the probably very ugly.
Very ugly. We start with the ugly
Yeah.
because that's what everyone always wants to hear. Actually, how we started is sort of a sad story. We didn't ever intend to start a business, actually. We were very happily living in Amsterdam, and Roland was working for a Dutch consultancy, and I was working for an American telecom, and we had our careers. And then my father, who had pulmonary fibrosis, the most cheerful man you'll ever meet, had no idea how sick he was. Mm-hmm. He was dad, then he was on a ventilator, and then he was gone. And so we moved back to the United States over a weekend, and Roland called his parents and said, Frank and Yanni, you have to sell everything in this apartment because Lisa and I are going home to take care of her family. And we got back to the United States, and we came to Vermont where we could kind of keep an eye on my mom and my brothers, who are very strong and resilient, but such a close family. We were really struggling. And we, had some projects to work on over the summer, and then Roland and I looked at each other and we're like, oh my God, we have no money anymore. Where did the money go? Obviously on groceries and just living. So I popped down to Boston, back to my network in Boston, where I started my career, and I got a job. And Roland said, I don't know if I want to make a resume, and I don't know if I want to put myself out there again, but I found these really cool mini ITX motherboards in Asia, and I think if we bring them to the United States, we can sell them here. And I was like, build it and they will come, because that movie had just come out. I feel like that baseball movie with that
Field
guy.
of Dreams, of course,
you.
yeah.
Thank you. And so we stood up a website, and thank you, Google Analytics. We started when business people finally decided that they could put their credit card online and buy things from the internet or the interwebs or the World Wide Web or whatever we were calling it back then. And we started selling everything online, and that is how the business started. But the intention was always to start importing components and actually design computers. And Roland and I have done it together ever since. And we always look at each other as team one. It's not always easy. And I think one of the recipes is that, besides being in love, I think he's my best person ever. We both understand whose job is whose. So there is a very firm set of responsibilities at the business, and our business skill sets are very distinct from each other. So I'm here talking to all of you. Talking to all of you is not Roland's jam. He's a little nervous about his accent even to this day. And Roland is, home right now, probably putting together a software application for our flight department as we speak. That's what we each do, and we pretty much stay in our lane. So if you're going to start a business with anybody, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a sibling, get in your lane, stay in your lane, respect each other's skill set, and try to stay off each other's toes. Otherwise, you're going to hate each other. That's my advice.
Yeah, we don't want to hate each other.
No, you don't want to hate each
no
other,
good.
especially your spouse.
Oh, God, no. Yeah.
20 years. We're almost at 20 years. So.
Yay!
2002, so.
That's awesome. So, first of all, raise your hand if you're hiring currently.
All of you. I'll hire you. This is Car.
Just saying.
That's the other reason I'm here. I'm always recruiting. I don't sell anymore. I recruit.
Amazing. Well, I had a feeling. Dave and I were talking about, the three companies here, and we're like, is there some of the potentially the top three fastest growing tech companies in the state? And they're all badass female founders, and that's no accident. So I do want to talk a little bit about scaling and how that has been. Narine, let's start with you, because you obviously nailed the timing. You saw an immediate problem and started a solution right away, and it wasn't that long ago. So tell us a little bit about how your team is growing, what the speed is like, and sort of what challenges you're facing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting when we started a virtual video conferencing platform. So we started using our platform quite a bit. And very quickly we realized that location doesn't matter anymore. So you can work from wherever you are. And in some sense, I felt like the world was a little bit more flat and more accessible to more people. I realized part of our team is in Armenia, and this is 10-hour time difference, right? And we had no problem with this because it was actually great, because we would literally have our day and we'll write a note to them and they'll start the work, and then by the time we wake up it was already ready, a lot of the development. So it was amazing for developing the product. And so last year was really all about building the product, making sure it works, and really just scaling the tech team. And then this year is building the go-to-market team, and really just going from kind of spreading from word of mouth organically to now actually sort of developing a team that does the sales and marketing as well. So hiring definitely been challenging. It's always hard to find good talent, and early on in the startup, it's also important to make sure to find people who are really clicking together, and the Moneyball film, right? It's very real. You want to find people who complement each other. And so, what I found that it's interesting, reaching out people on LinkedIn works really well. I literally directly reached out to a lot of folks, and then once you find a couple of people, then they start introducing others, that they know, and it sort of starts unlocking a lot of things. We also tried recruiters. One cool thing we noticed is a lot of folks are moving to Vermont because of the lifestyle and the quality of the life, and it's amazing for the companies because we have at least 3 people who basically are with us because they moved back to Vermont.
That's awesome. And I've experienced at VSET too. A lot of people will move here working remotely for another company, and they'll kind of be like, but can you keep an ear out for me? Because I actually want to work for a Vermont company. And that keeps happening at VSET, and it's so exciting. I think there is a little bit of negativity around people coming and working remotely here, but I can guarantee you those people want to work for Vermont companies, a lot of them, and they are. So that's really exciting. Dani, how about you? You didn't want to start a company. How have you built a culture with that? I mean, that piece of it is really important. And, you know, like you said, it's, you know, if you're not the one that wants to build the team, that's hard, but it has to happen from the start, right?
Yeah, I think it was about trying to find like-minded people at first. We didn't take investment until we're 7 years in. And I was really reluctant to take investment because in my mind, I thought investment meant that you lose control. I didn't realize there are really benevolent investors out there that actually, when you take investment at the right time with the right people, it's like putting gas on a fire. So it really, I wish I did it sooner. But the way that we had to scale was all bootstrapped. So every hire was critical, and it was important that we hired people that we saw that we could grow with, and that became a difficult proposition because it's hard to find those people. And then often you don't know who those people are until they work with you for a while. Mm-hmm. And then what we do is so custom that by the time you find out who they are, only then are they discovering whether or not they like the work or you like the way they do the work. That part was pretty slow. But once we got the different divisions of the company set up and we had kind of a nucleus in each division, it started to multiply. And then when we took investment, then it was more about the culture of people who just really self-defined by the excellence of their work, and they believed that, and they believed in what they were doing. And then we found a couple of questions we would ask that helped discover kind of who people were without wanting to tell us.
Please share.
One of them was like, do you like Ayn Rand? But little things like that, and then we just play around with it and have fun with it.
Dave's is what's your winter passion, right, Dave? Works every time.
Ice fishing.
And Lisa, I mean, I feel like OnLogic has like one of the strongest cultures. I remember even before I knew like what the company was or what it did, it's one of those companies where like, oh, I've heard of that. Why have I heard of that? And I think because it's a strong culture.
Thank you. Yeah, a culture is built from the ground up. So, you know, I could talk all day about our culture. I'm very proud of it, but I'm proud of the team that maintains it and comes in and signs up for it and agrees to it. If you want me to talk about scaling or culture.
Oh, well, let's talk about scaling culture. Oh my God, that's actually, yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God, I'm hoping someone knows how to do that. Yeah, so I'll say for scaling, I like what Dani said. It has to be very intentional. And I think I would encourage any business owners to realize that scaling is sort of a series of fits and starts. You know, you're making a huge investment and you're like, oh my God, how much money did I just put into this team or this process or this piece of equipment or this new building, this new business asset? And when is it going to spin for me? You know, the concept of the flywheel, it takes a long time. And so scaling is that thing that you just have to kind of gear up for and kind of have the intestinal fortitude to keep investing in, even though it kind of gives you the shits. But it's awesome once the flywheel is spinning, and a lot of that really has to do with ensuring that the entire team is pulling together. And one of the things we did at OnLogic, probably in 2009 or so, is we started with a one-page operating strategy, which is really one page, and I have an employee here who knows it well, her name's Jess. It's one page that says, here's who we are, here's who we aren't, here's what we're good at, here's what we pretty much have to do in 5 years, here's what we have to do in 1 year, and here are the things we have to do every 90 days. And when you present information to your team that is that clear and that open, that they have an opportunity to poke holes in, you are putting fire, you know, you're putting gas on the fire, because you are now giving the smartest people you'll ever work with the opportunity to really get their work done without having to constantly check in on you. And, you know, if we're going to talk about some of our early on fails, one of our early on fails was not understanding that people couldn't read our mind. I really didn't get it. I'm like, what do you not understand about what we're trying to do here? That was me circa 2006. We're making money in computers, so go do that. But yeah, giving people information and letting them do it, and scaling culture. Wow. Yeah, when you figure it out, let me know, because culture is the most important thing you'll do all day, right? Dave, what do they say? Culture eats strategy for breakfast or lunch. Say it one more time.
You said it correctly.
Culture Eats strategy for breakfast or lunch.
I like breakfast.
Breakfast.
Stick
right.
with that.
We'll stick
And
with
how many employees do you have? Do you know?
Somewhere between 200 and 220. We have multiple locations in the United States and Asia and Europe, so I kind of lose a little bit of track. But during the pandemic, we've hired nearly 100 people. And we have probably nearly 100 open positions. So send everybody and their loved one to OnLogic.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't hire fast enough.
That's insane. I want to get into like a couple specifics here. Dani, I want you to talk to us about your customers. Who are they? And maybe give us like a case study of how your technology has made a difference for them.
Okay, most of our clients are in either automotive retail, luxury retail, or CPG. A case study, let's see. We worked with a client that we currently work with. They're a non-e-commerce model. They were throwing about $400 million in media spend to digital, pointing to digital every year. And they
Sorry,
didn't.
how much?
$400 million a year.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, a lot of money. A lot of
That's how I
money.
sold out this event.
That's how much she spent on diapers last week.
It's my client's spend, not mine. But the point is, they had a huge budget, and they were pointing it all to digital and didn't know what was working, what was not, because the transaction took place offline. So we ported in all of their data systems that were relevant, and we helped them discover relationships between the online and offline data systems so that they could figure out what behaviors in digital would point to and predict an offline outcome. And then when we could put a dollar value to that, you could set an economic value that you back into the online behaviors. And then you can put that against the media buy to get a return on ad spend for a non-e-commerce business model.
Wow, that's
How satisfying is that?
That was actually really awesome.
God.
So then we automated it. And then, yeah, it really was very
kind of
useful.
Holy grail of tracking your digital spend.
Not enough.
So, I mean, I have to ask like the pricing question, right? Like, were you charging them enough for that like early on? Because I think that's one of the like biggest hurdles I faced entrepreneurs is like, I don't know how to do my pricing. Like I'm struggling. And when you're working with numbers that big, it's like, I gotta charge a lot here.
Yeah, I don't think it was all R&D, so I don't think we knew it was going to be that successful.
Yeah.
And it's hard to charge someone for something that you don't know whether or not it's going to work.
Yeah.
But we just put everything we had in it.
Microsoft, but
And it's fair. And then it ended up being successful. And that's also I'm not saying that money doesn't matter, because it does, but the value of the work and being able to make this indelible mark on an industry, that's what has to be the most fulfilling kind of goal in your work.
Yeah.
Not that the bottom line doesn't matter, because it does when you run a company. You have to make payroll. But there has to be something else in it intrinsically that you derive value from. And that's kind of what was motivating us at the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so badass. Okay. So Lisa, I'm picturing you and Roland shipping stuff out and in this room, and then I think we're doing something here, and then at what point were you like, whoa, we're onto something here?
Saturday morning when we got an order at 7 a.m. and our computer went ding, and it was $400, and we're like, what? Someone just gave us $400. Quick, let's go pack that. Go send it over UPS. Actually, it happened very quickly because we sell a physical good. Yeah. And there are a lot of businesses that are professional services, and I would imagine that's a very different model. But when you have the items, and in that case they were in our bedroom packed up against the ceiling, all the way up to the ceiling, and the orders were just coming in, and every few minutes our e-commerce site would make a ding-ding sound, we thought, people want this, and people who've never met us want this. So at that moment, that's when we knew it had legs, and we were profitable within 6 months.
If only every company was profitable within 6 months.
We thought
right?
the same thing. This is crazy.
That's crazy. So at that point, did you take investment? How did you kind of scale that up?
We do not have any outside investors. Recently, we started an employee stock purchase program. Awesome. So our employees have an opportunity to purchase stock in OnLogic and become owners in that sense. So they are our outside investors, but they are obviously within the company. Other than that, we just have bank lending, and that was very specific decision-making on our part, that we wanted to maintain sort of our independence to grow the business at the rate we wanted to grow it.
Yeah.
And also, hardware is not very sexy, so investors would not have been beating down our door.
Yeah.
You know, what you guys do is very exciting, and it is something that investors can really wrap their mind around how they can help. And hardware is just that sort of base of the pyramid, so to speak. It's just not that cool. Also, we're up in the boonies.
I think you're very
Our
cool.
whole industry is in Asia, so everyone's like, "Wait, Vermont? Wait, where's it going? Where's that? Where's that?"
That's awesome. Narine, can you talk to us about how you've funded your company so far?
Yeah, so when we first started, it was just like bootstrapping. We're very fortunate that we started at the right time, like kind of mentioned. Like very quickly, we had our very first customer, which was super exciting. And, we were bootstrapping, and then, founders kind of pitched in. And very quickly, probably like 4 or 5 months into the business, we did seed round. It was really fun. Like you said, like some products are a little bit easier to show, especially when you sort of talking to investors in your own video conferencing platform. Like I invited everybody to InSpace. Once in a while something would crash, and that happens. And it was like, unfortunate, move on to the next one. But, most of them worked very successfully. We had so what happened early on when we first started, I connected with a few founders who had successful, like sort of businesses, early businesses. And, we started sort of exchanging information, and then I got into other founders' network. And so when it was time for us to fundraise, I basically reached out to them, and they were like, actually, they reached out to me and were like, do you want introductions? So they made introductions to their investors, and then, David here, he was actually great at this. He was our advisor through this process, and he was like, just condense it into a week. So there's like a nice window of opportunity, and you don't want to make a long process. So that's exactly what we did. I probably had about 50 to 80 meetings in that week.
Oh my God.
It was great. It was oversubscribed. I think Friday night we had our first meeting, and then Monday we had our first term sheet. And then from then on, it was just like term sheets going against each other. By the way, if you ever do fundraising as a new founder, which is what I was, there are a lot of terms and there are sneaky things in there, like David likes to say. So one of the best things is like if you are in that situation where you can have competing term sheets, you can actually take one to the other, and they'll point you out exactly where things are wrong with the other term sheet. And then you can go back with the other one. So basically, this kind of came down to like when I was a kid, like so my mom and dad are really good chess players, and it was my dream to win chess to any one of them, right? And so like, very early on, I realized it's going to take me forever to learn this chess thing and really nail it down to a point where I'm going to win. So one time I actually asked them both to play with me. So I had one of them do the move, and then I did the same move to the other, and then they played back. So in this process, it's basically guaranteed one win. So it was the same process, just a little different, logistics, but it worked really well. Yeah, so we raised seed round, and we were aimed to raise 1.5, and then we raised 2.5, and then very quickly it extended to 6. So.
Does anyone think that Narine is making this sound like way too fun? Like, I'm like, you're having way too much fun doing this. She said everything has been fun so far.
It's been it's really exciting. Sometimes like at the end of the day, like I don't know what happened to my day. I feel like I'm exhausted, but I don't know what happened. But it's fun, definitely fun.
It's because you're using InSpace and not Zoom, right?
No fatigue, definitely no fatigue.
So Dani, you said you bootstrapped for 7 years and then you raised capital. Can you talk a little bit about like what that inflection point was when you were like, okay, now's the time I need to do this? Or maybe like yesterday was the time I should do this now?
I think it was when we saw we were building a lot of really effective data models, but manually, and you had to front load all of the effort to build the code base. But if you don't reuse that code base and rerun the analyses, you're not getting those economies of scale in a way that you can really scale the business. And so we're constantly and arduously starting from scratch on these great data models that had a lot of value, but until we could take time out and start building a data platform that would automate all of that, we were never going to get the kind of volume that we needed, and we would always be caught in this kind of rat race of the consulting side of the business, getting clients, have them give you their strategic objectives, you have them meet them, and then you kind of don't have anything to show for it after the fact if they don't renew. And that's a living kind of like year by year on those contracts, and that just becomes pretty brutal. So we knew we had to move from a consulting business into a technology business in order for that to really become a scalable, viable business, and that's when we took investment. The beauty of it, though, is we had all these data models from 7 years in different industries, and so then we just plugged the data into it, and it was a platform within a year.
Amazing. You had done the hard part.
Yeah, that's the concept.
Lisa, where is the weirdest place that some of your hardware is?
Oh, wow. I'm thinking.
I feel like there's got to be something.
Yeah, there's just so many. I can't pick just one. Well, one of the places we're most proud of is at the beginning of the pandemic, General Motors decided to build ventilators, which we were like, wow, that's crazy. And then suddenly they called us on Tuesday and said, we need 300 computers by Thursday. And so the weirdest place I've ever seen my computer is next to the CEO, Mary Barra. I was like, that's orange, that's big.
I made that. I did.
So that's one of the most interesting places I can think of off the top of my head. But we have computers like on every continent, including Antarctica and the Arctic. Our computers operate in a very wide temperature range, so they go into a lot of extreme places also outside.
Extreme.
Yeah,
very cool. Also, there was something that you touched on that I just wanted to, do a little callback here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about mistakes.
Oh, so many.
So
many mistakes.
Any favorites you care to share? Maybe a big learning moment we can benefit from here.
Oh, so many. Oh, I should have thought
Too many
that
to
one
choose
through. So
from.
many. I'm not the person who says I don't remember my mistakes. I just only remember my mistakes.
There's just a
actually.
slideshow going through right now.
Of mistakes. I would say one of our biggest missteps was our early on expansion into Europe. This concept of picking the right business partners, people who are aligned with you culturally, really understanding how you're going to work together as a team, and also understanding if the relationship is not thriving, how to end the relationship on good terms. I can say it's the one experience I never wanted to have, but I got to go through a lawsuit in Dutch business court, which was really interesting, and that's me being very, very open. That was probably one of the most difficult business mistakes Roland and I have made, but it was also one of our biggest learning experiences. And for as upsetting as it wasn't actually that upsetting. I wasn't all that bothered by it, because at the end of the day, it was just, I don't want to sound flippant, it's just money. When the people around you are happy and healthy, this was pre-pandemic, the company was thriving, our management team was in the United States running the business expertly. We had some of our biggest growth while Roland and I were in Europe, while our management team was in the United States, just being their awesome selves with the rest of the team. And Roland and I were like, dude, we should never go back because the company's going faster without us. While we were handling the situation in the Netherlands and getting that operation back on the rails. So for as hard as it was a wonderful learning experience, just seeing how the foreign judiciary system works, interacting with judges and jurists and lawyers in a foreign language and a foreign jurisdiction, working through some issues with business partners, and coming back and finding that the business didn't just survive, it thrived without us. So
You're like, well, all right, we can take the hint.
All right. Guess you don't need us.
Yeah.
That's one of many.
Yeah. Dani, you got any big ones you're willing to share?
I mean, we make mistakes every day. Yeah, I'd say they're manifold failures. You just hope that the successes outnumber the failures at the end of the day. It doesn't always happen. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one I already said was not taking investment sooner. I'd say if anything hobbled our growth, it would be that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge one. It's terrifying, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, Narine talked about it a little bit, but we see it all the time at Visa. Someone will come to us with a sort of DIY term sheet because they've never done it before, right? And lucky for us, there's lots of resources of people in Vermont that can help with that. But you can really get yourself into a pickle. Seen it happen before.
I'd like to make just one point
Yeah.
and kind of point to all of you sitting here today, and thank you all for being here. As business people, I think we can all look at our, many and manifold mistakes and errors. Our lives are a series of mistakes and a few spectacular successes. And I think all of you being here today kind of indicates to all of us up here that despite everything that might have gone wrong, we are recognized for the successes, and that feels good. And doing that for each other, doing that in your community, and letting people have their fails, and then lifting them up and always remembering what their latest, greatest success was, it just propels us all forward as business people and also members of our own community. So, thank you for being here and looking at me and thinking, wow, you're so successful, without really holding all of those mistakes over my head all the time like I do myself, and do that for each other.
It's well said. I did pay them, though.
You did. You all have 15 extra bucks in your
Yeah,
pocket.
exactly. So what was I going to ask you? So, Narine, one thing that I was dying to ask you is that whenever we're consulting with entrepreneurs at VSET, one of the things we talk about is just how hard it is to sell in academia. With the bicycles that exist and just the speed at which things move, which is typically not the fastest. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I can totally talk about it, or Mike Springer from my team, who is actually our head of sales. He has to deal a lot with this, so he's probably more qualified to talk about this. But I would tell you this, so it's interesting, like when we were first starting, through my career, I advised a lot of tech companies, and I was thinking about InSpace as a tech company, even though we're really a tech company because we want to sell to education. And the idea is that if you try to build something that's good for everybody, then you're going to end up building something that's not good for anybody. So we're education is where we can see the highest impact, where really a lot of professors and teachers needed this solution. And for me, the biggest thing was when I went into these demos and you see someone's face just brighten up when they're starting thinking about all the things they can do in their classroom with no technology barriers. And so, we were kind of building this as a tech company, and then we realized ed tech and selling to higher ed is a really big challenge. And, we were kind of tackling one at a time, the seasonality and the differences. I think definitely pandemic helped us to get into a lot of traditional schools and sort of just getting a lot of logos and brand recognition. And then now what we're seeing is a lot of those traditional schools, they have online branches and they have their online schools involved, right? So whether it's Champlain Online or Stanford Online or MIT Online. So it definitely it's definitely very hard to get into it. And one of the things is I love the product and I love the tech and I like focusing on that, but I realized that also go-to-market is just as important, and having the go-to-market strategy is just as important as having the right product, especially in higher ed because of all the, different, factors that go into selling into higher ed.
It really helps too that you can invite them into your platform to take a meeting.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Inception meeting or something.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a lot of meetings are doubled as demos, which is fun. And then early on, what happened is so as soon as the MVP was ready, I sent it to a colleague at Champlain College, and then this time we don't have the login system yet, so she sent to someone else, and it just started spreading among the faculty. And then next thing I know, the president called me and he's like, look, I don't know what InSpace is, but everybody wants it. How do we sign up? And I was like, all right, let me figure this out. And, then what happened is word of mouth kind of spread, because the coolest thing about academia is it's a very sticky environment, right? So, people love talking to each other, and, if something happens, they immediately, it's sort of, there's this network, right? So then, people from other schools started reaching out to us, getting demos, and kind of giving us ideas, too, how to develop the product to make it better. So it's really, taking a lot of ideas. And there was this French professor in Bowdoin College who went to a conference, and at the end she was she had everybody jump into InSpace to check it out. So now we're hearing from all the French professors across the country, which is really cool. So it's sort of spread by word of mouth, and then now is the time where we're okay, now we have to build our go-to-market team and actually go beyond that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used it that one time, and then I immediately said today, I was like, can I send this to my father-in-law at UMass? And he's like, he's been using it since as soon as he got the link.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and he said it's an absolute game changer for the engagement of his students, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have parenthood on my mind. Since the last female founders, I had a baby. Yes, thank you. I know. It's really hard. Yeah, that's why I look the way I look now. Thank you. That's a little one yapping in the back every once in a while. But if you weren't already impressed with Dani, she also has 3-year-old twins. Yeah. So everyone's like, wow, yeah. Thank you. So Dani, I'm going to put you on the spot. Talk to us about being a mother of twins and running a company, because my brain just can't even begin to wrap around that whole concept.
Yeah, probably for good reason. I don't recommend it. I recommend having your kids one at a time, if you can. That's a shock of a lifetime. What exactly is the question?
I guess it's more a person. I just can't really, like I said, wrap my head around it. But just, I guess we have so many parents that start companies, or people that want to have babies and are scared to start companies because they think they're going to get the timing wrong, or what is the right timing. And I guess just talking about maybe what has worked for you, what has made it so that you can both be a mother and be a founder, and maybe what has helped you find success with both of those things.
Okay, so timing was important for that decision, for sure, especially since the decision of twins wasn't exactly mine. But the company had to be stable, and it had to get to a point where I could leave it for most of, I wouldn't say I left it a lot, but I definitely was not as present in the first year after having my kids as I was the previous years. So if I didn't have a good team, I didn't have good leadership, and I didn't have a strong customer base where it was self-sustaining, I probably wouldn't have survived it if it was maybe even a year sooner. That said, my advice is probably a little more extreme, because having two is harder. Trying to get them to sleep through the night, they wake each other up. It's a good year, you're sleep deprived. And then you realize, you need a strong network of help. You gotta go, and even with the best help in the world, your kids still just want you. So you're going to be pulled out of the game for a while, and you got to make sure you've got strong culture in your company, and strong people, and strong clients. We have really good clients that helped a lot to make that reality, so that I could do that, and I was really grateful for all of those things. But you do have to time it right, or else, I think it could have been damaging, but it wasn't. If anything, I think it made me go back with a fresh perspective of how to run the company and be a better leader.
That's awesome. Lisa, do you want to add to that?
I would just say, and I'd like everyone to go home and ask themselves how they can be part of the solution. The pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic, but primarily the pandemic, has been really hard on primary caregiver parent, mom or dad, or whoever that might be. Maybe it's a grandparent or an aunt and uncle. And, the United States in general, and Vermont as well, just does not do enough to support families. When I look at my team on Zoom, I have 2 teenagers. I have to check Google to find out where they are now. But when we started the business, it was Roland and I working together. And Dani, you don't have a partner running your business with you, and that's hard. I don't know how you do it. And so when our kids were young, we got help, but it's not help that's available to every Vermonter, and it's not help to every primary parent and child caregiver across the country. So how do we become part of that, and how do we share our stories, push our legislature, push our communities? Because I look at some of our team on Zoom, and they got a bouncing baby who is really 2 squeaks away from screaming, a cat on their head, and a look on their face that says, I am working 150% and failing everybody. And that was a look on their faces as I looked at our team on Zoom through the pandemic. And so we dialed back, and we told people, listen, If you want to come into the office, get away from the cats, okay. If you want to stay at home, be with the cats and the kids, okay. How do we really elevate and help each other? And that really is not just our legislature, that's all of us pulling and figuring out how to make it better, because it's unaffordable, it's frustrating, and it's keeping people out of the workforce in droves.
Like, that got me. Ooh, got a little emotional there. That's true.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I see Jeremy bouncing over there.
Yay. Hey, buddy. Yeah, damn. It's so true. So I will let all of you ask questions too, but I just have one more that I want to ask, which is, if any, what resources in Vermont or, in your networks have been most helpful? And maybe, childcare is a great one. What resources do you need? How can our community better support you?
Who's that to?
All of you, yeah, whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll let Narine go.
Yeah, you look ready.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. I think from resource perspective, I think what Lisa just mentioned, that's like very real, like just having like child support, for example, right? Like for parents. And I think one thing I noticed like in pandemic, like it was really two ways, like people who had support for kids at home, it actually got better for them because they're like more efficient, they could do more meetings, they could do more things that they wanted to do. And then for people who were like taking care of kids while also doing work, it felt like, I can't even imagine, like it must be like complete nightmare. So just having, childcare support where like everybody can afford that, I think is like really important. So other than that, I think like, so for example, VSAT is like an excellent resource. Like I've been going there for a long time, and I think like just being able to be around other people, like, so, like for example, I knew David from there. So like when I started a company, the first thing was like, I called him up and I was like, okay, what do we do, right? So where do we go or who do we tell? And so I think just like more resources like that is great. Yeah.
Awesome. Dani?
I didn't seek out resources. I should have. I didn't even find Dave at VSET actually till I was several years in. I now know how there's this underground startup culture. I think VSET, the work you guys are doing there, and then Hula was a big, help in that regard, bringing that startup culture to life and really bringing it forefront for Burlington and the area is very important. But when I was in the throes of starting it, I wasn't one of those entrepreneurs that came out with a kind of sales pitch and a deck and trying to raise money. I was someone doing the work and using the work to sell more work. So I didn't really have the luxury of like looking up and trying to find where there are resources and what can I do to try to make my life easier. I wish that I did, because when I did find certain resources, it was just knowing that you guys are there. It made me realize that we're not alone and there's a lot more you can do if you're just proactive about it. But I wish there was a way to make it easier to find you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're working on it. Check out the Vermont Startup Collective.
I'd say my experience was very different. I grew up in Barrie, so when I left the state, it was because I didn't think there was any economic opportunity here for me, and that was, I think I graduated from high school in 1990 or so. So my impression of Vermont was it wasn't a place to really start a business. And then when my dad passed away and Roland and I came back here to run the business, I actually found our brave little state is a lovely alphabet soup of help. If you start with the letter V, all the agencies show up. There's VSET and there's VITA and there's, the Vermont Women's Fund and there's the V this and the V that. So just start with the letter V and work your way through. ThinkVermont.gov. In fact, one of the regional directors, I think he's since retired for Washington County, helped us find our space next to the Waterbury Ben & Jerry's facility when we moved up here. And then when we had problems with DSL, it was someone from Vermont's Public Service Bureau who helped us work with Verizon to get it fixed. That's Beth Fastagy, one of my favorite human beings. Absolutely love Beth. So just, reach out, ask the question. There's the Center for Women in Enterprise. I'm on the board, so that's my plug. There's VSAT. Oh my goodness, the folks who are putting on this tonight. There's Corey, the Center on Rural Innovation. There is so much out there and so many people who want to help. it's almost borderline too much help. So take what you want and give them the feedback, make sure they know how they're being helpful.
How we're not being helpful too.
Yeah. OnLogic has benefited from the VEGI program, which is the Vermont Economic Growth Incentive Program, which is an incentive program that really helps Vermont employers kind of put the money back into the economy. We've gotten funding from the Vermont Training Program, so definitely we can reach out to them. The Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center. Are you guys taking notes? Because like everyone's just looking at, like, seriously, call these folks. They're all at your disposal, and they are the nicest people, because Vermont is just small enough. If it were Massachusetts, I don't think they would have noticed us.
So true. That's why Dave and I moved up here, right, Dave?
Massachusetts. Is this going to be in Massachusetts? I hope not. I love you, Massachusetts.
We love you, but you're just not as cool as us. So, and I will say too, I interact with a lot of folks that are like, I don't exactly know who the right person to talk to is, but like I'd say 90% of the emails I get start with that, and just reach out to someone, because all of these service providers in Vermont, it's such a small world. We all know each other. We all work together. If I'm not the right person, I will send you to Gwen at CWE or Cassidy at Hula or whoever it is that's the right person for you to see. And that's what we're here for. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out. If I can't help you, I will tell you, I promise. So we are going to shift gears and let our audience ask some questions. I'll get my mic guy up here. And so if tech guy is out, it is. So if you could just raise your hand if you want to ask a question, Dave will come find you. And I'm going to bring you this.
I think I can share that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cara, and I live in southern Vermont. I'm down by Ludlow, and I came through the BRIC program, the Black River Innovation Campus. So my question is, I'm in ed tech as well, first-time founder, forever time teacher. So I have been driving deep into this B2C land, and it's hard. And so I haven't heard any of you talk about business modeling. And are you going to find your customers, or are you finding the outlets who find the customers? And do you have to pick one? Can you do both? Could I be working with school systems and they find the parents who really need the support, while I'm also drilling on the automated tech side of parents who are seeking support?
Great question, Cara.
Do you want to take that?
Go, yes.
Okay, so this is like hitting some of the pain points, like in higher ed and selling in general, right? So it's a very tricky problem, because you're like the people who want to use it, right? So like in our case, it's like faculty, teachers, are not the people who are making decisions for the schools. And then on the other hand, people who are making decisions are like, CIOs, IT departments, or provost office. They're not necessarily teachers, so they don't really know what is this whole excitement about. Why do they really, really need to buy this versus like they already have X, Y, Z. So how do you really connect the dots there is really tricky, which is one of the reasons why like a lot of ed tech, it's very hard to sell into, schools in general. And I think what we learned from our experience is like being able to talk to someone in sort of mid-level who works with faculty. They're not necessarily the users of the product in our case, but they work with faculty, instructional designers, right, for example, but they also are in a position where they can actually bring in decision makers. And Mike can probably tell you a lot more about this process in general, but it's very tricky.
Anyone else want to add to that?
I think prior to starting OnLogic, I had a career in sales, and I think in your question, I already heard hints of your own answer to yourself, and I think what you're asking yourself is, how do I disqualify? Realizing that the most important aspect of sales beyond qualifying is disqualifying, and it is as valuable. So there are no easy answers for you other than to have the courage to say, this particular customer segment is just not profitable enough or working out for me, and cutting out your services if you need to that customer segment. So good luck. Disqualify.
I do want to also add one more thing. So partnerships is another big one in EdTech. So like if you find other companies who are doing similar things, maybe complementary products, then you can sell through them. And I have been recently talking to a lot of edtech founders who actually told me that you can get quite a bit in your ARR by just doing partnerships and not direct sales.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Liz. I'm currently a Sustainable Innovation MBA student at UVM, but before that I was working in sales at OnLogic for a year and a half.
I don't recognize you behind your mask.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
So yeah, we briefly overlapped and then COVID happened. And
Yep.
Anyway, I was hoping that you could speak a little bit about making the decision to have an open salary policy at OnLogic. And if you find that that impacts female employees specifically, their ability to discuss fair compensation.
Sorry, there we go. So when we founded the company, that was 2003, we were sitting next to each other on the couch in our apartment, and we asked ourselves, what kind of company do we want to be? And, frankly, Roland and I really decided we wanted to be the kind of company we would want to work for, which is by no means to say everybody wants to work for us. It is simply to say we want to work for us. And so coming into that conversation, we talked about our culture, our core values, open and fair, independent and innovative. And we realized that innovative is not just about computer hardware and bits and bytes and technology. It's also about the business model. And so we looked at each other and said, well, why don't we just make salaries open, including our own, including the entire management team? If we are committed to salary integrity, it doesn't mean we're going to get everybody's salary right. In fact, we get people's salary wrong a lot. But it does mean that people can talk about their salaries with each other. They can sit in a cafe and ask, how much are you making? Or they can check. And then they can have those open conversations with us. We do our best. It's a long process every 6 months or so where the entire management team sits down and reviews every salary in the entire company. And then it just goes up into the Google document. Our goal with that was to empower people to ask questions, to challenge us, to ask us if we think we're correct, to have an opportunity to right-size their salaries if they feel that their salaries are unfair, and to hold the entire management team accountable to, the core values, which are open, fair, independent, and innovative. It's been an interesting experience, I have to say. We're so used to it that we don't think about it much anymore. But as far as I know, there are probably only a few companies in the country that have completely open salaries at this point. But did that answer your question? Yeah. Awesome. Sorry, I didn't recognize you behind your face mask.
Rosalie. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rosalie Phillip. I'm the founder of Hop App, which connects people in real time at events and helps people compare the happenings in real time. I just had a question. Dani, you said that you wish that you took investment sooner on. If you were, it sounds like you're a little bit picky, and if you were picky, if you wanted to work with female investors, was that something that wasn't available? Did you come across it at all? Just curious.
That's an interesting question. I never thought about gender in that equation. I thought about autonomy. I thought about protecting the integrity of what we had built, and I wanted to make sure that I think I had so many experiences when I tried to build it in another organization where by the time the product got to market, it either was debased or changed in such a way it never realized its true vision. I needed to make sure there are investors who would respect that. But gender never really came to mind for me. It was more about making sure that our values were aligned. And I would have been open, I think, no matter what gender that was, as long as the fit was there and the energy was there.
Great.
Yeah, so one thing actually we put on our pitch deck was the last slide was who we want as investors, and part of it was really be strong supporters of women founders, because we're both women founders, and like, you know, we want to make sure that we work with someone who can really support us. And we also noticed this interesting thing, which is like the snowball effect, right? So we're both female founders, and then what happened, we started attracting more strong women who wanted to work with us. And then now when I look at like sort of our executive team, we're very heavy on women's side, so which is very rare for a tech company. I mean, really unheard of. In fact, like when I was consulting for this startup, like it's like a recruitment platform where like they connect like programmers and tech folks to like other employees. And so one of the questions we had at this time was like, okay, we want more women programmers. So like, how do we make this happen? And like one idea was like, well, we can change the score a little bit. So like you get a little bit ranked higher in that score list. Like, and for me, that was like such a hard thing, because I was thinking, okay, if we skew that, because we know like if we have more women in the tech, then they'll attract more women, and then they'll just sort of go into this process. But at the same time, if you adjust the score, then everybody knows the score is adjusted. So like there, I was like sitting, like I worked really hard for this, and if you adjust that score, that's gonna make me feel like it's adjusted, right? So at this time, it was like chicken and egg, and I was like, there's no way out of it. And like even when I was at Champlain, I thought quite a bit about like women in tech, how can we do this more? And like sort of it went all the way to like I would go and do lectures in like guest lectures in high schools for like, you know, role modeling. And really the only thing that really worked for me was like role modeling, like just seeing other women who are very successful at what they do. So that was one of the things where I was like, okay, let's build an executive team that's balanced, right, in tech. And once you start building, it just sort of starts happening. Like there's a point where you hit, then after that it's easier. But with investors, yeah, there's like lots of great investors like supporting women founders.
Awesome. We got time for one more. Heather Newworth, Lovejoy. Newworth, Lovejoy? Lovejoy, Newworth? Nailed it.
Hi, I'm Heather from the Middlebury College Innovation Hub. We have an amazing group of student leaders, entrepreneurs, and women in computer science here. And I'm just wondering if you have any knowledge or wisdom or advice to pass on to this next group of folks that are graduating out into the world.
Love that. Welcome, Middlebury students.
Yes. I mean, I can tell, like, probably one of the best things is, like, try network early on. Like, when I was in school, I didn't realize the importance of, like, really networking with people. But, like, that came in really, really handy. Just get to know people, what they do. And then it just turns out it's, like, such a connected world. Like, there's always someone at the past that's, like, interesting. But also, like, if you can get, like, a job in, like, a startup, like, it's really, really nice to be able to see what's going on, like, the details and, like, everything. And so for me, like just being like advising a lot of startups and being part of startups was like really helpful, like when I actually started doing my own.
Yeah. Dani?
I would say I agree. I think that startup life is a really good experience. I also think working in a bigger organization is a great experience, so you understand how to move through systems and work your way up a ladder. I also think try to learn as much as you can. Try to avoid feeling entitled. Don't feel like you necessarily deserve the opportunity just because you've worked so hard to get there. But that will get in your way. It'll present an ego that'll make it harder for you to see objectively what you have to learn to grow. It's not just hard skills, it's soft skills, and having a strong EQ as well as being able to code or do whatever you do is equally as important, because that can hobble you if you're not growing on the emotional side as well as on the hard skill side. So try to go in without that ego and don't feel entitled that you deserve something, because you're probably not going to take the opportunity to learn where you can grow from it.
So good.
I would just say, find your passion. If you have the opportunity to work somewhere that finances your outside passions, apply yourself to that job, work to live, and enjoy and apply yourself to that passion and that mission outside of work. And if you're fortunate enough to find a job where the mission is sort of baked into the work that you do, jump into that feet first as well. I think sometimes, coming out of college, especially with a lot of student loan. And I don't mean this about Middlebury particularly, but I came out of college under a mountain of student loan. It was, I took the first job that paid well. And, the wonderful people I worked with were the joy of that job. There was no particular mission in selling ISP services, internet services. I wasn't really changing the world in my mind, but I was contributing to a team and contributing to a positive culture at CompuServe that elevated everybody when they left and went to do their mission. So find the joy in the job, if it's financing your lifestyle, or find the joy in the mission at work, and don't be afraid to just leap in and then pay off your student debt ASAP.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I can't think of a better note to end on.
Student debt.
This, I was thinking about the joy part, not the student debt part. But listen, this is not easy to do, to come up here and be vulnerable about your passion and your business. So please join me in thanking these incredible women for coming out tonight. And thank all of you for being here. It's weird to come to stuff now. I know that you all did great. I see very little social awkwardness, so nailed it. Thank you again. We will have another Female Founders event in January. More information to come. So if you don't already follow VSET, please do. And thanks to Hotel Vermont. Thanks to the Media Factory and my team, Kelly and Nikki and Dave. Y'all rock. And yeah, everyone have a great night. Thanks.